This is the Black Information Network Daily Podcast, and I am your host, Ramses Ja. And sometimes the amount of stories that make their way to us means that we simply can't cover everything that comes our way. But from time to time, a story just stays with me, and I feel compelled to share it with you and give you my thoughts. And now, one more thing.
Keith Olbermann drops F-bomb in reaction to the NFL ditching "end racism" phrase in the end zones for the Super Bowl.
That's from Fox News.
I mean, we could read the article, but I'm still stuck at ditching "end racism." Because I think we both understand their why. And I just think that's flatly unacceptable.
So the short of it is that, and correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not a NFL person or a sports person, but they had signage up on the football field that said "end racism." And that has been the case for a few years now.
Yeah, since 2021. So after the summer of reckoning,
Okay.
the NFL, along with the team names, the logos, and the yard markers that are painted on the field, they've also had stenciled on each end zone "end racism," and several other messages for social justice initiatives, but "end racism" being most prominent. In the last Super Bowl, the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs had "end racism" in their end zone.
Okay.
Which is this, for those who are not sports fans, the end zone is where the touchdowns happen. So there's a lot of camera attention on the end zones, which is why that was the area where they chose to put that messaging.
Okay.
And here we are, as the NFL is simultaneously doubling down on their DEI efforts while also removing "end racism" from the field.
Oh, so explain that to me, doubling down on their DEI efforts.
So we've seen dozens of corporations roll back DEI initiatives, roll back DEI programming, roll back any DEI, literature or information from their websites.
Yeah.
The NFL has done no such thing and has come out publicly and said they don't plan to. They understand that their league wouldn't exist without diversity. Their league is better because of diversity.
Sure.
And they
makes sense.
And they think that they're making that impression on the public at large. So they won't be pressured into doing away with DEI. They weren't pressured into doing it in the first place, is what they want to argue.
Okay.
They just realize that everything's better with diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Sure. So why would they change the language in the end zone from "end racism"? Because I would imagine that would be a sentiment that would be pretty universal and would be necessary until such a time in humanity as there is no longer a such thing as racism.
I'm going to read you this quote from the commissioner, and then I'm going to get into my thoughts as to why they would make such a radical change in light of these quotes.
Okay.
"We got into diversity efforts because we felt like it was the right thing for the National Football League, and we're going to continue those efforts because we've not only convinced ourselves, we've proven ourselves that it does make the NFL better. We're not in this because it's a trend, and we're not going to get in or out of it because it's a trend. Our efforts are fundamental in trying to attract the best possible talent in the National Football League, both on and off the field. As I said previously, we see that. We see how it benefits the NFL, and so I think we'll continue those efforts." That is a quote from the commissioner of the National Football League,
I'm
Roger
assuming that's
Goodell.
that's like the boss, right?
Yeah, the commissioner. So the NFL, people think, is a singular organization. It's really an umbrella for 32 separate organizations.
Okay.
A league of billionaire owners who all of their teams participate in the league. So the league is made up of all of those owners working together.
Okay.
Their businesses support one another, but they are simultaneously in competition with one another.
Okay.
For fans' dollars, for television deals, for attention, for merchandise, etc.
Okay.
So the commissioner represents the collective interest of all 32 owners.
Okay.
So he's their employee. Like you think of him as the boss because he's positioned that way, but he's really an employee of all 32 owners. He has to answer to them. He doesn't get to make unilateral decisions.
Okay.
They can fire him if they felt like it.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, man, it's an interesting place.
But he's still someone who he speaks for
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So him saying that he's not going to abandon the DEI efforts for the league is theoretically a good thing.
Yes.
Until we see this article from Fox News that says that they're changing the signage from the end zone.
Yeah, and they would argue that those two things have nothing to do with each other. And if you were gullible or just wanted to believe that, you'd agree with them. Until you realize that the 45th and 47th president of the United States will be attending the game. And then you realize words like end racism might make him uncomfortable. And then once you ask yourself that question out loud, because the headline of this article, let me go back. Keith Olbermann drops F-bomb in reaction to the NFL ditching end racism phrase in end zones for the Super Bowl. I'm going to read the article now. A common occurrence in NFL end zones over the last 4+ years, the end racism message will not appear in the end zones during the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl, the largest television product in the United States by a lot. The biggest stage that the NFL can be on is when they decide to stop putting end racism on the field. This trend began in 2020 NFL opener after racial tension in the United States. NFL spokesman Brian McCarthy told The Atlantic on Tuesday the league will go a different route. And we'd have to ask ourselves why, Ramses. What has improved so much that we should stop the end racism efforts?
I'd argue that it's worse.
I'd argue that it's worse as well. Instead, the NFL end zones at the Super Bowl on Sunday will feature the phrases, "choose love," and "it takes all of us."
Oh, so they just took the teeth out of the end zone for the Super Bowl, not for the whole season, just for the benefit or for the sensibilities of Donald Trump, who will be in attendance. So he's basically ignoring all of the black people and brown people who suffer under systemic oppression, white supremacy, and indeed a racist country, so that he can meet the sensibilities of the head racist in charge.
I'm going to tell you something worse. They're masking this cowardice. They are masking this bending of the knee to the head racist in charge to an idea of support for those who just suffered in the wildfires in LA.
Choose love?
McCarthy cited the recent tragedies that have occurred in the U.S. since the start of 2025, including the terror attack in New Orleans, wildfires in Los Angeles area, and the deadly plane crash near Washington, D.C. The NFL's decision was not taken kindly by former ESPN analyst and political commentator Keith Olbermann. He said on Twitter on Tuesday, I quote, "Guess what, NFL? If you're against stop racism, that means you're for racism. Expletive you and every one of your advertisers. End racism was only seen during the NFC Championship game against the Eagles and the Washington Commanders, and the AFC Championship game where the Chiefs beat the Buffalo Bills."
Okay, hold on one second. So he's trying to say, choose love, and it takes all of us, are the slogans meant to address the wildfires, the plane crash, and the terror attack in New Orleans. Now, if he said just the terror attack in New Orleans, I could see that as being plausible.
Let me tell you why.
I know it's not, but I could see for his purposes.
But I have tangible evidence as to why that's not the case.
Go ahead. Well, I know it's not the case, but it's...
No, but we know it's not the case in the way that we just... If somebody...
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, we know it's not the case because we have good logic and sound reasoning.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
talking about I know it's not the case as fact.
Okay, so go ahead.
The Philadelphia Eagles played the Washington Commanders last week, and end racism was in their end zone. And the end zones of the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills were choose love and it takes us all, or it takes all of us.
Okay.
In the Super Bowl last year, in the Kansas City Chiefs end zone was end racism, and in multiple end zones across the league.
Okay.
So trying to co-opt phrases you were already using and trying to determine that the reason you're using them now is because of these tragedies that have happened is cowardice and intellectually dishonest. But they know that they can get that over on their proud to be an American fan base. They know they can justify removing in racism because those people, just like the head racist in charge, are uncomfortable with the idea of ending racism. They'd rather pretend that we live in a non-racist country, like we saw several black politicians say as they were on the campaign trail for
the head racist in charge.
Head racist in charge.
I like that. I think we should go with that name.
It's a really interesting ploy. I just decided that I'm not watching the NFL Super Bowl this year.
Okay, I'll join you.
And
I don't care about it anyway.
Rams, that's not a big deal. For me, who played football from 5 years old, played college football, and it's been my favorite sport my whole life, I stopped watching when they made it impossible for Colin Kaepernick to get a job. And too much time passed, and I got over it, like most of the country, unfortunately. And I started watching again. And it's a really complicated position to take because they make 1,000 black men millionaires a year. You know what I mean? Like that's, and maybe that number's too high. It's, 32 teams by 50 something players. So yeah, that number's far too high, but they've created thousands of black millionaires.
Okay.
And it's complicated, right? You blackball Colin Kaepernick, and then you roll out all these social justice initiatives to apologize to the fans that spend all the money, while not apologizing to the player that you blackball for simply saying police killing unarmed black people is wrong.
Yeah. And then you do this end zone thing so that Donald Trump can be comfortable, but you're platforming Kendrick Lamar.
You get what I'm saying?
It's complicated.
It's
I see what
hard
you
to
mean.
not support Kendrick. It's hard to not root for Kendrick. It's hard to not root for Jay-Z, who they have a partnership with, who's been, as you've noticed, very, very black on his choices for NFL Super Bowl.
Well, watch this. It's hard for some people. It's complicated for some people. For me, it's never been that hard. It feels like they're trying to walk a line. And, well, no, I can't say that because I've had to walk the line myself. But I find, for the most part, that when it comes to things that are this important, some things that are this meaningful, some things where you know objectively right from wrong, and these are like the way history records moments like this, is either you're on the right side of history or you're on the wrong side of history. And being on the right side of history, make no mistake, is wildly uncomfortable.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about walking the line, people that are walking the line are on the wrong side.
That's where I was going.
You're not actually. You just want to appear to be decent.
Right. So watch this. When it comes to something of this magnitude, it is much easier for a person like me to be wildly uncomfortable and just be on the right side of history. Even if the majority opposes me. Listen, I've been in rooms full of people who were all wrong. And I've just had to be the person who was right until such a time as they figured it out. And you feel stupid and you feel humiliated and everybody thinks they got one over on you. And then you start to doubt yourself and all. But no.
This isn't one of the cases where it feels uncomfortable, though. This isn't from a lack of comfort. This is from actual conflict, right? They're doing conflicting actions.
Yeah, this is weirdo stuff.
Platforming Kendrick Lamar on the largest stage in America.
They may as well have got Drake.
This is the thing. The fiscal decision would have supported getting Drake. Drake has been a fiscally far more successful artist than Kendrick Lamar.
Okay.
He's a far more popular artist than Kendrick Lamar. He's a far more digestible artist than Kendrick Lamar. He's just not better. And choosing Kendrick, who's not just better, but exclamation point, dark navy black.
All the
I don't
way.
even know if navy black is a color, but navy
Vanta
blue is
black.
Navy blue is very dark blue, so navy black. I feel like it's like
go with it.
midnight in Mississippi under the trees black.
I know that black. I was there.
With a very pronounced, very pro-black message. They know that.
Yeah.
And they still chose Kendrick Lamar. So when I say it's complicated, I mean it. The richest person in the history of the NFL is black. You know what I mean? The highest paid person in the NFL right now is black. The organization or the league, the entertainment property that has created the most black wealth isn't music, isn't the NBA, it's the NFL. They just employ more black people. Now, on the highest levels, they don't though. Right? So none of the owners are black. You know, there's a great discrepancy in the general managers. There's a greater discrepancy in the head coaches. For a long time, there was a massive discrepancy in quarterbacks, the most important position in the game, because they determined we weren't smart enough to play that role. So you're watching this league that blackballed a black man for taking a knee, not even for taking a stand. The irony in that language. The most humble position you could take, on your knee. They made that disrespectful. Right? So when I say it's complicated, it's not because it's not comfortable. I turned the TV off, pardon the pun, for years. It wasn't uncomfortable at all.
No, I like the word
My
black.
favorite sport ever, Colin Kaepernick got blackballed, I was done. Just too much time passed. Same argument I made when we were talking about, you know, our position as black people during the election. Too much time has passed since life was hell for us. And we've gotten just comfortable enough to have the privilege of feeling like we can just not participate. Or we can be contrarian and stand with the other side because we got a couple dollars and air conditioning and we can walk into the restaurant where white people are eating and sit down. It's gotten too comfortable. So just too much time went by and I just found myself one day back in front of a TV watching football.
Sure.
And this just reminded me that when faced with which side of the line to stand on, they toe the line. They walk the line.
Why
and
is everybody so
unfortunately,
scared, man?
you have to be on the wrong side of it to do that.
Yeah. I don't understand why everybody's so scared to go all in, especially a league like this.
The thing that troubles me the most, Rams, is that people are so afraid of him. Like people who should laugh at him. Like
he's clown shoes.
You're the bully? Man, if you don't go sit down, do you want to come to the game or no?
Yeah.
If you want to come, we'll get you some tickets and some popcorn and all that. But we're not changing how we do things. Who are you?
Yeah. And you're going to be here for 4 years. Or maybe less. You're 1 million years old, dude. Black people are going to be here forever. Why do all these businesses and these corporations and these entities keep making these decisions, offending an entire swath of the population?
They're not making fiscal decisions, Ramses.
This is who they really are.
They're making decisions about who they are and where they stand. Yeah. Like I tell you, when people reach out to us to defend Donald Trump, they've never met him. They don't know him. So they couldn't possibly be defending him. But they're defending themselves.
Sure. No, that's fair.
They're defending the part of themselves that they see in him.
That's more than fair. And I think that, let's go with that. You're right. Okay, let's go with that. If they care more about being racist than they do about money, that leaves a wide open lane for black people to capitalize on that if we would just take a moment and recognize that these entities do not support us, they do not value us, they do not respect us. And if we took our time and attention and money and focused it on decidedly black businesses, endeavors, pushes, etc., then we could build up our own infrastructure that would force, in order for these other entities to be competitive, it would force them to fire the people that are kind of towing the racism along, to change their corporate culture, and we would have to see it for some time, and to meet us where we deserve to be met. And we should be well met. And what comes to mind right now, just because I know that this man has been on this path for some time, and he's a friend of ours and a friend of all of our shows that we do together, Isaac Hayes III, and fan base. For everybody that's still on X or Twitter or whatever, you are on a platform owned by a Nazi. If you can everybody, not just black folks, everybody, if you are on that platform, you are on a platform owned by a Nazi. Every time you log in, your eyes that see the ads, that line his pockets, means that your eyes are supporting him. Your attention is supporting him. And what you can do to change that, if indeed you are a decent human being, you don't have to be a good one, just decent, is go to fan base. And if everybody does that, set up the account, even if you're not active there. If everybody does that, then, we get some of our respect back. It might take some time. We get there. Ice Cube has his own league, and I'm not going to get into that, but he's a black man, for better or worse, whatever his politics are. And
you can't just say whatever his politics are.
Well, that's fair. I can't.
The whole reason we just told people to get off the other platform was based on that man's
politics. Yes, that's fair. But watch this. I think it's more of a stretch for a black person to be anti-black than it is for a white person. That's not to say that black people are not anti-black, because there's certainly a great deal of them. But for a person like Ice Cube, who initially, when Donald Trump ran, he was very critical of Donald Trump, his campaign and his presidency. Toward the end of Donald Trump's first presidency, we saw Ice Cube trying to, I think he had like an agenda for Black America or something like that, he called it. And he was trying to meet with Donald Trump to have this conversation, to whatever it was. And we looked at that like, yo, are you kissing the ring? And he pushed back saying, no, that's not what I'm doing. He's in office. We got to have this conversation. We just looked like, yo, Ice Cube sold us out. Right? I still kind of feel that way.
Ice Cube just showed up to this last election cycle telling people not to vote. So we're not going to act like this was just something that happened
so again,
time ago.
There's this whole back and forth, with Ice Cube. But the fact remains is that Ice Cube has a league. And the more, like, I feel like if we needed to put pressure on somebody, we could be more effective if the person was black, regardless of their politics, than if the person was white.
Yeah.
A white person, I know how this is going to sound, but follow me. A white person can just simply fly above all of that. Even the money, to your point, the money is, if the racism is stronger than their desire to be racist.
You put an if there. There's no if.
Because the racism is stronger than their desire to make money.
Even more importantly, they've decided that their fans, because they're making the decisions for their fans, they've decided their fans don't care about ending racism.
And their fans are not going to push back.
Yeah. You don't put that on the end zone for yourself. The whole reason that all of it is a TV show for the viewer. Yeah. They've decided that their fans have no issue and there won't be any pushback with them just deciding that ending racism is no longer a priority. Okay. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's to the end where we unplug from all of this stuff, starting with Isaac Hayes' fan base and Ice Cube's Big Three as a start, because we have to create something else. Yeah. It's just like we only boycott Target because another store exists. Yeah. But what we're figuring out with all these ideas of boycotting and the idea of doing it long term is we have to create an alternative. Yeah. Or eventually we just go back to what we were doing. Or you look around, okay, I got to go to the store.
I need some food.
We boycotted last week. What we doing now? Is there a black Target? Is there a Bullseye now?
Bullseye, I like that.
Did we make the new store? Like, where are we going? Okay, no more Amazon. So where's the other place where I can have them deliver everything to my house? Like
eBay.
It's sure,
but we have not black owned. I see what you mean.
As a collective, we have to give each other other options. It'd be like telling people, "Hey, stop using money." They would be like, "Huh?" Yeah. Well, the racists own all the money and you're using it.
Well, that's the way the world works. That's a fair point. How about this? We start where we are with what we have and we do what we can. And so, knowing this about the NFL and what they're on, again, to your point, it's really easy for me because I love the NFL as much as you love it. Outside of that, well, no, I love when I'm around you, like I'll participate. That's what I mean. Like if you love it, then I'll be a good sport about it. But if no one in my life ecosystem, whatever, ever said NFL game, football, ball, whatever, I would not even think about it. I'm a music guy, 100%. So it's easy for me to ignore this sort of stuff. But
There's no equivalent place for those brothers to go make millions of dollars.
Yeah, and that's fair. And in terms of the people that are participating, that are making money, if they're doing that and it's a means to an end, I understand having to participate in a racist society that hates you and a racist system that hates you, so that you can earn enough money to change it.
And again, the unfortunate part is the only way for them to make money from that is for people watching it.
Sure, but they don't need all the people.
It is a complicated piece of math to have
to
do.
More than fair, but they don't need all the people. And I think that where I'm going with this is, to my larger point, do what you can with what you have where you are. I think that feels more like, hey, if you think that this is acceptable or acceptable enough, or you're just willing to take this on the chin, the game is on the television for free. No one's going to stop you, right? But if you feel like the NFL has insulted you or has insulted your brothers and sisters who are African American, by changing their messaging to accommodate the sensibilities of Donald Trump, and this game doesn't make or break you. You're like a Ramses type of person. You're like, I don't, just tell me who won or don't, wouldn't make a difference one bit in my life overall. It wouldn't change a thing about what I'm doing, right? If you're that type of person, that's doing what you can where you are, right? With what you have. If you live in a food desert and you have to go to Walmart is the only place that sells food, and we're boycotting Walmart, we can boycott Walmart. I live in the city. Like, I can go to Kroger and buy all my food because they're keeping their DEI policies, or at least last I checked. You know what I mean? It's just down the street. It's the opposite direction of the Walmart. No problem. I don't like Walmart anyway. They got roaches in there. So, but, for a person like me, that's okay. If you're not that person, no one's going to ask you to do that. But what you can do that. Do what you can where you are with what you have. If you have money in a bank and you have access to a black-owned bank, there's how you get back some of the respect that you deserve. If you have, if you're going to a fast food restaurant, but you can stop at the black-owned mom and pop, restaurant and get dinner for your kids there, you know what I'm saying? Consider it. Like, this is that time. And the push is not to be racist or what is it, reverse racist, because that's what a lot of times white folks try to call it if we try to support black-owned businesses. The push is rather to earn, or rather reclaim, because I don't think you need to earn human dignity from people, but to reclaim dignity and respect. And I think that it's really easy for these institutions like the NFL to change their end zone, because I think that in their minds and in their eyes and in their hearts, we are very much an afterthought. Like, I can look at you, a black man, I can look at your family, I could look at your plight, and I can say, this human being is just like me. This human being wants a better tomorrow for his family, his future. The same things that make me cry make him cry. The same things that make me laugh make him laugh. He is my brother. He's walking a different path, but we have more in common than what separates us, and we can sit down at a table and break bread. I don't think that the NFL looks at a lot of groups like that, but I don't think the NFL looks at black people like that, as illustrated by this move. They're sometimesy with it, or when it makes sense for them, or when they can get cool points from it, sure, like a lot of other companies. But a move like this, for the benefit of Donald Trump specifically, feels short-sighted, feels insulting, and it feels like they don't care. And if that's how they feel, I'm with you, dog. I don't need to watch the Super Bowl. I'd rather watch the superb owl.
All right.
Well, you're free to disagree. And if you so choose, do so using the Red Microphone Talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app, or you can hit me on all social media at RamsesJa.
I am Q Ward on all social media as well.
Let's talk about it until we do.
Peace.
This has been a production of the Black Information Network. Today's show is produced by Chris Thompson. Have some thoughts you'd like to share? Use the Red Microphone Talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app. While you're there, be sure to hit subscribe and download all of our episodes. I am your host, Ramses Ja, on all social media. Join us tomorrow as we share our news with our voice from our perspective, right here on the Black Information Network Daily Podcast.